So you don't want to have a scenario where you're artificially inflating your numbers because the internal team is looking at your site, looking at your campaigns, looking at your landing pages, and those numbers are being included in your GA4 data. So you should absolutely, if applicable, exclude internal traffic because you might get inflated session counts. Your metrics like engaged sessions and engagement rate can be high. Perhaps if your team is testing contact forms or checkout processes, then the number of events and conversion rates can be high. And I've seen evidence as well that the internal team causes a lot of direct traffic. So by filtering out that internal noise, you get a much clearer picture of the number of actual customers, actual users that are interacting with your site. So that will help towards ensuring you rely on the right numbers to make the right strategic decisions, from budget allocation to content strategy, all to make sure it's accurate as humanly possible. So let's dig in and let's see how we exclude IP addresses in GA4. So here I am in GA4, which should hopefully come as no surprise to you. And when it comes to excluding IP addresses, there are two steps really we have to take. The first one we have to do is make sure that you're defining what your internal traffic is, and then you have to activate the data filter. So first of all, I'm going to go to data streams, click on my data stream, and then I'm going to scroll all the way down to click configure tag settings. Up pops a lot of different options. Again, we're clicking on a lot of things here. If I click show more, then I can see I've got define internal traffic. There's already a rule here for corporate headquarters, which is just our house. But if I click create, we can see that we've got different options here for creating an internal traffic rule. So we've got the rule name. So let's just say head office as the rule name. The traffic type value. So by default, the traffic type parameter is always set to internal. And for most cases, that's all you need. However, you could get clever here if you wanted to. You could create different values like dev team or marketing agency if you want to segment different types of internal traffic later on. And then we've got the IP address matching. So you could choose IP address equals for just a simple single static IP address. Then we've got different kind of match conditions, begins with contains. We've got CIDR notation. Your IT team, if you're in a large office, can probably give you that information. And then you've got RegEx as well, which might help when you've got kind of a bulk amount of IP addresses. So once you have then clicked create, you might think that's job done, but actually there's a few things we then have to do. So I'm going to exit the data stream section and I'm going to go to data filters. So we can see we've already got one set up here, but just for this scenario, you can create up to 10 data filters by property, and you need an editor. So I need to be an editor so I can see we've got the create filter option here. I'm going to click on that. And for this one, we want to choose internal traffic. So this is where we go back to that traffic type where the parameter value is internal. So of course, if we called this marketing agency or dev team, we'd have to set the parameter value there. So we'd have to name it. So let's go internal team head office. The filter option here, now this is really key here. The filter operation is exclude or include only. So if you just wanted to include the head office in all of your Google Analytics data, you could choose include only, but you'd want to exclude here if you would exclude events where the value of parameter traffic type exactly matches internal. Then we've got a couple of filter states. So testing is the default mode. In this state, GA4 identifies and labels the internal data traffic, but would still include it in your reports. So there's then a new dimension called test data filter name, which allows you to apply that filter to your reports and dimensions. Active is kind of like the the no point of return really. It's permanently excluded, so matching data will be excluded from any processing. So which one would work for you? Well, for most, I think testing might be useful initially, where you can set the IP addresses for exclusion and then review it after a week or a month or so and see what difference that makes to the data. It kind of gives you like a safety net. And then once you're completely happy, you can obviously set that to active. But this is very much your decision only. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer here. So let's go through the process again. So in the data stream, we'd go to configure tag settings, click on show more, and we define our internal traffic here. And then we'd go to the data filters, and then we would create our filter. If we then wanted to see what that data would look like with the dimension applied, for example, let's go to traffic acquisition. Let's click add a filter. And let's search test data filter name. Exactly matches, and then you can choose your value if there is any data in that value. And then you can see how that sort of interacts with the data that you're seeing. Okay, hopefully that's useful. And yeah, get building those filters.